Edward married my mother's youngest sister, and the boy with the quilt was my brother Dawson, who is 5 years younger than I. And I remember when Edward came home from the war, and Edsel came home with him. I remember that. And I and Frances and Edward began to date and got married a few years later. And in my younger days, I enjoyed hearing Edward tell about his experiences in World War II. And his stories kind of helped me get through my time in the Army. And I'm honored to call him uncle, and certainly honored that he is the great veteran that he is. Today is Memorial Day, one of two national holidays when we honor those who served in the armed forces. On November 11th each year, we honor our living veterans. 6 months later, we honor and remember those who are no longer with us, especially those veterans who gave their lives on the field of battle. America is only 236 years old, but since July the 4th, 1776, there have been 1,317,812 Americans killed in action in our armed forces, and that figure does not include the many thousands listed as missing in action. This special day, Memorial Day, when we honor and remember our veterans who are no longer with us, we ask, how did this event begin and how has it changed over the years? Historians trace the beginning of Memorial Day to the Civil War, when Southern women went out to the burial grounds to decorate the graves of men killed in battle. After the war, Northern families began decorating the graves of fallen Union soldiers. And on May the 5th, 1868, General John Morgan, who was the head of the largest Union Veterans Association, the Grand Army of the Republic, proclaimed that May 30th each year would be Decoration Day as a memorial to fallen soldiers. Over the years, several states made May the 30th a state holiday, and it eventually became a national holiday. The official name was changed from Decoration Day to Memorial Day in 1882. On June the 28th, 1968, President Lyndon Johnson signed into law the Uniform Holidays Bill, which moved Memorial Day from May the 30th to the last Monday in May in order to create a three-day holiday weekend. Since then, Memorial Day has gradually changed from a day of remembrance to a day best known now as a day for the beginning of the summer season and for the Indianapolis 500 car race and the Coca-Cola 600 stock car race. However, there are still communities such as DeKalb County which take time from their Memorial Day weekend activities to remember those who served in our armed forces and who now lie silent in the grave waiting for the resurrection. While we are gathered here today, let us take time to remember the men from DeKalb County who gave their lives in battle in foreign lands and on faraway oceans. Most of them were in their late teens or early 20s. We see their names on the plaque at the courthouse, and we see their pictures on the wall in schools and in churches, or in a living room where a grieving mother, after all these years, still mourns for her boy who never came home. I have selected a few names at random and will tell you some things about them. And I would like to add to what the chaplain said a little bit earlier. For the sake of time, I cannot list all the names of those who gave their lives in battle, but I'll try to mention just a few of them and tell you a few things about them. Among the doughboys of World War I were Bob Adamson and Perry Johnson, who were both killed at age 28. World War II was known as America's largest war since the Civil War. Millions of men and women answered the call to service and served and fought all over the world. They were known as GIs. Tom Brokaw called them the greatest generation. Sir Winston Churchill said that the young American men in World War II were most unusual because they were the only men he knew who could laugh and fight at the same time. General George C. Marshall, who was chief of the Army throughout the war, was asked if America had a secret weapon for winning the war. General Marshall said yes, the best kids in the world. Among those best kids in the world were 1,396 men and 4 women from DeKalb County. And of that number, there were 46 who were killed in action. Let me tell you about 5 of them. James Cordell Green grew up in the Belt community. He joined the Army in November 1942 and went overseas in April 1943. He was with the historic 1st Infantry Division and fought in North Africa and Sicily. On D-Day, June the 6th, 1944, he landed at Normandy, France. He was last seen on the beach. His body was never found. The Army declared him dead, and his name is inscribed on the tablet of the missing at the American Cemetery near Omaha Beach. He was 23 years old. Holly Jackson Howard from Smithville joined the Navy on May the 10th, 1940 and graduated from the Navy Submarine School at New London, Connecticut. He was a crewman on the submarine S-44, which was sunk on October the 7th, 1943. He was buried at sea at age 25. Oscar Thomas from Alexandria joined the Army in 1944. Barely 1 year later, he died fighting on Okinawa. When he was killed in action, he was just 2 days beyond his 19th birthday. Henry Joines from the Clear Fork community joined the Marine Corps. He was killed in action on November the 21st, 1943 at the Battle of Bougainville and was buried in the Manila National Cemetery in the Philippines. And finally, Frank Williams from Dowelltown joined the United States Army on December 1942 and fought in Africa, North Africa, Sicily, Italy, and Germany. On April the 16th, 1945, just 3 weeks before Germany surrendered, he was killed fighting in Nuremberg, Germany. He was 33 years old. In the Korean War, William Bill Evans was killed in action on March the 22nd, 1951. During the Vietnam War in the 1960s and early 1970s, there were 7 men from DeKalb County who died fighting. And they were Billy Adcock, Dale Hutchings, Gary Montgomery, L.B. Murphy, Ronnie Reeder, James Tomlinson, and Danny Young. For the past 20 years, America has been fighting a new kind of war in the Persian Gulf, Iraq, and Afghanistan. And a new generation of young Americans has joined the ranks of fallen veterans. 2 of them were from DeKalb County. On August the 14th, 2005, Shannon Taylor was killed in Tuz, Iraq, when his vehicle was attacked by an enemy force. He was 30 years old. On May the 17th, 2010, just 2 years ago, Billy Anderson was killed in Afghanistan while serving with the famous 82nd Airborne Division. He was brought home to DeKalb County and laid to rest in the peaceful Dismal Cemetery. He was only 20 years old, and he left behind Caitlin, his young widow, and their 8-month-old daughter. These men and all the others from DeKalb County who died in service to our country did not want to die. But when they were called to duty, they did not flinch and they did not back down when they laid their lives on the line. They were and are our heroes today. We look at their faces in the pictures and notice how young they were. They never grew old. They are forever young. In some ways, they are our greatest generation because they gave two lives for their country. They gave the life they had, and they gave the life they never had. Many never married, and those who were married never lived to see their children grow up. They never lived to play with grandchildren. They never experienced all the joys and troubles that come with life. They gave all they had. They gave their very lives so that we can enjoy the freedoms we have here in America and in DeKalb County. 4 years ago, my wife Brenda and I spent 3 days roaming around Normandy, France in a small car. We went to the 5 D-Day landing beaches, Utah and Omaha beaches where the Americans landed, and to the Gold, Sword, and Juno beaches where the British and Canadian armies landed. Near Omaha Beach, we visited the American Cemetery and walked through rows of thousands of gleaming white crosses marking the graves of Americans who died there. Down on Omaha Beach, where James Cordell Green came ashore in a hail of bullets, I sat on a rock wall by a big stone monument memorializing the men who died there at the bloodiest place of D-Day. I gazed out upon the blue water of the English Channel, and I tried to envision all the landing boats and the thousands of young Americans climbing out of those boats and wading ashore while being shot at by the Germans who would have been behind where I was sitting. As I thought about the bloody fighting and the painful deaths that took place there on June 6, 1944, my eyes focused on what was happening in front of me. I watched young families playing in the sand and swimming in the water. Instead of soldiers running through the surf and dodging bullets, I watched young boys and girls running ashore chasing beach balls. For a moment, I thought it was wrong and out of place for people to be enjoying themselves at such a historic place. But then I realized that was what those D-Day veterans and all veterans in all world wars fought and died for, so that others could enjoy the benefits of freedom. I believe our fallen veterans from DeKalb County would not want us to be sad-faced on this Memorial Day. They would want us to enjoy the benefits of freedom they fought for and died for. And I think they would also want us to remember them and what they did for us. As we leave here today to join family and friends in picnics and cookouts and other Memorial Day activities, let each of us, with real gratitude in our hearts, promise that our fallen veterans will always be remembered and never forgotten.